The crystal towers of Keth Prime stretched toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Each tower held millions of the Kethvar, beings made of living crystal whose bodies caught and reflected light in ways that hurt weaker eyes to look upon. For 10,000 years they had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist wrapped in beauty. High Dominarch Zephyros stood in the highest tower, his crystalline form pulsing with inner light as he reviewed the daily reports. His psychic abilities let him read the minds of his subordinates across vast distances, ensuring perfect control over his empire. The Kethvar had built their civilization on one simple truth. They were superior to all other life forms in the galaxy. Every species they had encountered fell into their classification system. The Kethvar themselves were Alpha class, perfect beings destined to rule. Below them came the Beta species, useful servants who could follow orders and perform basic tasks. The Gamma species were little more than animals, good only for labor or food. At the bottom were the Delta species, worthless vermin who served no purpose except to be eliminated before they could become problems. Commander Vextai approached the High Dominarch's platform, his smaller crystal body glowing with nervous energy. "My lord, we have detected new signals from the outer rim. Grid reference 2847 Delta shows signs of a developing civilization." Zephyros barely looked up from his reports. In the past 1,000 years, they had discovered 47 new species. All had been classified, conquered, or destroyed according to their worth. Classification? The planet is small, mostly water, with a single intelligent species. They call themselves humans. Initial scans show primitive technology, no psychic abilities, and violent tendencies toward their own kind. Clear Delta classification, my lord. The High Dominarch's crystalline face showed no emotion. Delta species were always dealt with the same way. Complete extermination. It was not cruelty, simply efficiency. History had taught the Kethvar that primitive species who survived long enough eventually became problems. Better to eliminate them while they were still weak. "Send a harvester fleet," Zephyros commanded. "Standard protocol. Glass the planet, harvest any useful resources, move on." Vextai bowed low. "At once, my lord. Should we attempt communication first? Why would we speak to vermin?" The High Dominarch's psychic voice carried cold amusement. "You do not negotiate with parasites. You eliminate them." 3 solar cycles later, Harvester Fleet Omega-7 departed from Keth Prime. The fleet consisted of 12 massive ships, each one capable of destroying entire worlds. Fleet Commander Thanok had carried out dozens of similar missions. He expected this one to be finished within a standard rotation. The journey to the human homeworld took 40 cycles. During the trip, the Kethvar analyzed every signal they could intercept from Earth. The humans had barely achieved spaceflight. Their weapons were chemical-based projectiles and primitive explosives. They had no energy shields, no psychic defenses, no unified government. They were even fighting wars among themselves. "It almost seems wasteful to use a full harvester fleet," said Sub-Commander Irisville, as she watched the blue planet grow larger on their screens. "A single ship could handle this extermination." Thanok's crystal body pulsed with agreement. "Standard protocol exists for a reason. We eliminate quickly and completely, leaving no chance for survivors to become future threats." As the fleet entered Earth's solar system, they began broadcasting their standard ultimatum message. The translation algorithms quickly converted their psychic communication into the dominant human languages. The message was simple and had never changed in 10,000 years. "Primitive species of the third planet, you have been classified as unworthy of existence. Your civilization will be terminated. Resistance is futile. Surrender will not be accepted. Prepare for extinction." The Kethvar expected the usual responses: panic, desperate pleas for mercy, or futile threats from primitive leaders. Instead, something strange happened. The humans went quiet. Not the silence of terror, but the silence of activity. "My lord," reported Scanner Tech Quindos, "the planet's electromagnetic emissions are increasing rapidly. It appears they are mobilizing their military forces." Thanok found this amusing. "Let them gather their primitive weapons. It will make no difference." But as the fleet moved closer to Earth, more strange readings appeared. The humans had stopped their wars with each other completely. Every nation on the planet was working together, sharing resources and information at an unprecedented rate. Their factories were producing weapons around the clock. Most puzzling of all, they seemed to be preparing defensive positions rather than trying to flee. Perhaps they do not understand the message, suggested Irisval. Their primitive minds might not comprehend the certainty of their doom. All species understand death, Thainok replied. These humans will learn, just like all the others. The Harvester fleet took position around Earth and began the standard bombardment pattern. Massive energy beams lanced down from orbit, designed to crack continents and boil oceans. The first strikes hit exactly where they were supposed to, turning entire cities into glass and ash. But then something impossible happened. Return fire came from the planet's surface. The primitive human weapons should not have been able to reach orbital altitude, let alone penetrate Kethvar shields. Yet somehow missiles and energy beams were striking the fleet's outer vessels. The damage was minimal, but it was damage nonetheless. How are they doing this? Thainok demanded. His scanners showed that the humans had somehow jury-rigged their primitive rockets with power sources that should not have been possible with their technology level. More disturbing were the psychic readings. Every Kethvar possessed natural telepathic abilities that let them dominate weaker minds. It was one of their greatest advantages in conquest. They could simply take control of enemy leaders and make them surrender. But when they tried to use these powers on the humans, nothing happened. The human minds were chaotic, unpredictable, and somehow resistant to psychic control. Instead of the ordered, logical thought patterns that made other species easy to dominate, human consciousness seemed to operate on pure chaos and emotion. It was like trying to grasp smoke with crystal hands. "Sir, we are receiving communications from the planet," reported Communications Officer Zelthak. "The humans are talking to us." "Put it through," Thainok ordered, curious despite himself. The voice that came through their speakers was calm, almost conversational. "Hello there. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We got your message about extinction and all that. Thanks for the heads up. Just wanted to let you know we decline." The bridge fell silent. In 10,000 years of conquest, no species had ever simply declined extinction. "You do not have a choice in the matter," Thainok replied through the translation system. "Your species has been classified as Delta. You will be eliminated." "See? That's where you made your first mistake," Admiral Chen's voice continued. "You assumed we'd just roll over and die like everyone else. But here's the thing about humans. We're really, really bad at knowing when we're supposed to give up." Before Thainok could respond, every human city on the planet suddenly lit up with weapons fire. Not the desperate, scattered resistance they had seen from other species, but coordinated, targeted strikes that hit the fleet's weak points with impossible accuracy. 2 of the outer ships suffered shield failures. Another took hull damage from what appeared to be modified nuclear weapons. The impossible was happening. A Delta-class species was fighting back effectively against Alpha-class technology. "All ships, increase bombardment intensity," Thainok ordered. "Burn every square meter of that planet's surface." But even as the order went out, he felt something he had not experienced in centuries of conquest. For the first time since the Kethvar had achieved interstellar flight, Commander Thainok felt doubt. On the surface of Earth, Admiral Chen closed the communication channel and turned to her staff. "Well, that got their attention. Phase 1 is complete. Signal all units, begin Phase 2. The real war was about to begin." The Kethvar had made their first mistake the moment they announced their arrival. They had given humanity something no other species had ever received: advance warning. Admiral Chen stood in the war room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching displays that showed the orbital battle raging above. 3 years ago, when Earth's deep space telescopes had first detected the approaching alien fleet, the world's governments had done something unprecedented in human history. They had stopped fighting each other completely and united against a common threat. "Status report," Chen ordered. Colonel Martinez pulled up a holographic display. "Orbital Defense Platform 7 took a direct hit but is still operational. The enemy is focusing their fire on our major population centers, just like we predicted. Civilian evacuations to the bunker cities are 90% complete," Chen nodded. The bunker cities had been humanity's first priority once they realized what was coming. While the Kethvar spent 3 years traveling to Earth, humans had been digging. Every major city now had a complete underground duplicate, connected by tunnels and powered by geothermal energy. The surface cities were mostly empty now, filled with nothing but decoy targets and hidden weapon systems. "What about the retaliation strikes?" she asked. "Better than expected, ma'am. We're hitting them with everything we've got. The jury-rigged fusion drives are working perfectly. Our missiles are actually reaching their ships. The fusion drives had been Dr. Petrov's idea. By strapping small fusion reactors to conventional rockets, they had managed to create weapons that could reach orbital altitude and punch through basic energy shields. It was crude, dangerous, and exactly the kind of insane solution that only humans would attempt. Above Earth's atmosphere, Fleet Commander Thainok stared at his damage reports in disbelief. 3 of his ships had sustained actual hull breaches. 2 more had lost primary shields. This was supposed to be a simple extermination mission, not a battle. "Sir, the humans are launching another wave of missiles," reported his weapons officer. "Same configuration as before, but there are more of them this time." "Impossible. Our scans showed they had limited industrial capacity. How can they be producing more weapons during active bombardment?" What Thainok didn't understand was that humans had spent 3 years converting their entire industrial base for war production. Every factory, every assembly line, every manufacturing facility on the planet was now producing weapons, ammunition, or defensive systems. The surface factories might be destroyed, but the underground facilities were still running at full capacity. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the planet," the communications officer reported. "Put it through." Admiral Chen's voice came through clearly, though explosions could be heard in the background. "Hey there, Crystal Boys. Just wanted to thank you for the fireworks show. Really impressive light display. But we've got a question for you." "Speak," Thainok replied coldly. "Did you really think we'd just sit here and let you blow us up? I mean, really? You must not know much about humans if you thought we'd go quietly. Your resistance is meaningless. We have destroyed thousands of species more advanced than yours." Admiral Chen's laugh was audible through the communication system. "See, that's your second mistake. You keep comparing us to other species. But here's the thing, we're not like other species. We're humans, and humans don't know how to quit." Before Thainok could respond, something new appeared on his sensors. The humans were launching what appeared to be crude spacecraft, barely more than missiles with life support systems attached. But these weren't aimed at his fleet. They were heading for the outer edge of the solar system. "What are they doing?" he wondered aloud. His scanner officer provided the answer. "Sir, it appears they are attempting to escape." "Finally showing sense," Thainok muttered. But something felt wrong. These weren't evacuation ships. There were too few of them, and they were moving too fast. These were more like, "Sir, multiple impacts on Ship 7. They're ramming us." The crude human spacecraft were indeed ramming the Kethvar vessels, but not randomly. Each one hit at precisely calculated points, targeting shield generators and weapon systems. The humans were using their own people as guided missiles. "Madness," whispered Irisfall. "They are sacrificing their own lives for minimal tactical advantage." But the advantages weren't minimal. Each ramming attack knocked out key systems, and the humans seemed to know exactly where to hit. More disturbing, the pilots of these suicide craft were broadcasting messages as they flew their final missions. "This is Lieutenant Torres. See you in hell, Crystal Freaks. Captain Williams here. Tell your friends back home. Earth sends its regards. Sarah Chen was right. We don't know how to quit. Take this, you alien bastards." The psychological effect on the Kethvar was profound. In their 10,000 years of conquest, they had never encountered a species willing to throw away individual lives for such small gains. It was illogical, wasteful, and completely outside their understanding of how intelligent beings should behave. "All ships, pull back to maximum bombardment range," Thainok ordered. "Continue planetary sterilization from a safe distance." But as the fleet repositioned, more surprises awaited them. The humans had somehow managed to hide massive railguns in asteroid-like camouflage throughout their solar system. These weapons couldn't penetrate the main fleet's shields, but they could damage smaller vessels and supply ships. Worse, the human weapons seemed to be improving with each attack. Early missiles had been crude and easily shot down, but each new wave showed design improvements as if the humans were learning and adapting in real time. "Sir, how is this possible?" asked Subcommander Irisville. "Our intelligence clearly showed these humans were primitive. They shouldn't have this level of tactical coordination or technological adaptation." Thainok was beginning to wonder the same thing. Every Kethvar conquest followed the same pattern. Initial resistance, followed by surrender once the primitive species realized the hopelessness of their situation. But these humans seemed to get more dangerous the longer the fight continued. "Sir, we have a problem," the communications officer announced. "We've lost contact with Supply Convoy Beta." "What do you mean, lost contact?" "They were scheduled to rendezvous with us 6 hours ago. Their last transmission was unusual." "Show me." The recording played on the bridge speakers. It started normally, routine supply convoy chatter between Kethvar crew members. Then suddenly there were sounds of combat, shouting, and what sounded like hull breaches. The last words were from Convoy Commander Yethal. "How did they get aboard?" "They came from nowhere. They're using our own weapons against us." "Then silence. Impossible," Thanos said. "Humans cannot survive in space without environmental suits. They have no ships capable of intercepting our convoys." But even as he spoke, he knew something was wrong. The humans were doing many things that should have been impossible. Their weapons were too effective, their coordination too perfect, their resistance too organized. On Earth's surface, Admiral Chen was coordinating humanity's response from her underground command center. Banks of computers showed real-time tactical data, much of it gathered by human operatives who had somehow managed to infiltrate Kethvar supply lines. "Ma'am, Boarding Team 7 reports successful capture of alien supply convoy," Colonel Martinez announced. "They're requesting immediate pickup." "Negative," Chen replied. "Tell them to learn everything they can about alien technology, then scuttle the ships. We can't risk exposing our space-capable units yet." The boarding teams were humanity's most dangerous secret. Using captured alien technology from the first attacks, human engineers had managed to build crude but functional spacecraft. These ships were hidden throughout the solar system, crewed by volunteers willing to spend weeks in space waiting for the chance to strike at alien supply lines. "What about the technology samples?" Martinez asked. "Send them to Research Division Alpha. Dr. Petrov thinks he's close to a breakthrough on their shield technology." This was humanity's greatest advantage. While other species had probably tried to resist the Kethvar in the past, none had possessed humanity's ability to reverse engineer captured technology under combat conditions. Human scientists and engineers were working around the clock, taking apart every piece of alien equipment they could capture and finding ways to turn it into weapons. Back in orbit, Thanos was receiving increasingly disturbing reports. 3 more supply convoys had gone missing. 2 of his escort frigates had suffered mysterious system failures. Most troubling of all, his fleet's psychic communications network was experiencing interference. "Sir, we're detecting some kind of psychic static," reported his mental communications officer. "It's making long-range telepathic contact difficult." "Source?" "Unknown, sir. It seems to be coming from the planet itself. But humans aren't supposed to have psychic abilities." What the Kethvar didn't realize was that humanity had captured several of their telepathic communication devices in the early attacks. Human scientists couldn't use them directly, but they had figured out how to generate interference that disrupted Kethvar mental networks. It was like jamming a radio, but for telepathic communications. "Sir," the scanner officer called out urgently, "we have multiple contacts approaching from the outer system. Configuration unknown." Thanos looked at the tactical disc doctor. Elena Petrov stared at the alien crystal in her hands, its surface pulsing with inner light even though it had been removed from its original host 12 hours ago. The laboratory around her buzzed with activity as teams of scientists worked around the clock to understand Kethvar technology. "Tell me you have good news." "Elena," Admiral Chen said as she entered the underground research facility. "Better than good," Petrov replied, holding up the crystal. "This is their psychic amplifier. Every Kethvar has one surgically implanted in their brainstem. It's how they control other species and coordinate their fleets. Can we use it? Not directly. Human brain chemistry is too different, but we can do something better." Petrov moved to a table covered with modified human technology. "We can copy it." She picked up what looked like a standard military helmet, but it had been extensively modified with crystal fragments and electronic components. "We've created a psychic interface that works with human neural patterns. It doesn't give us mind control like theirs, but it does something they never expected, which is perfect tactical coordination. Put 100 human soldiers wearing these helmets in the field, and they can communicate instantly across any distance. No radio chatter, no communication delays, no chance of interception. Pure thought-to-thought contact." Chen smiled grimly. "Show me." Petrov activated the device and handed it to the Admiral. The moment Chen put it on, Her mind filled with voices. Not the chaotic noise she expected, but clear, organized thoughts from human commanders around the globe. "My God," Chen whispered. "It's like having a direct line to every unit in our forces." "That's not all," Petrov continued. "We've figured out how to turn their own weapons against them. These crystal-based energy systems are incredibly efficient, but they have a fatal weakness." She led Chen to another table where teams of engineers were modifying captured Kethvar weapons. Their energy weapons are designed to work only with Kethvar crystal technology, but we've learned to fool them. A young engineer named Singh looked up from his work. "We basically convinced their guns that we're Kethvar. These modified crystals emit the right psychic signature to activate their weapon systems. We can use their own guns better than they can." "How is that possible?" "Because we're not limited by their programming," Singh explained. "Kethvar weapons have built-in safety systems and power limitations. They're designed to never harm other Kethvar, but since we're human, those safety systems don't apply to us." Admiral Chen picked up one of the modified alien weapons. It was sleek, beautiful, and felt warm to the touch. "What's the range on this?" "About 50% better than their original specifications. We removed the power governors." Chen activated the weapon and aimed it at a target across the room. The energy beam that emerged was brilliant blue-white and cut through reinforced steel like it was paper. "Outstanding. How many do we have?" "About 2,000 functional weapons so far, with more coming online every hour. But that's not our biggest achievement." Petrov led Chen deeper into the facility, past laboratories where human scientists worked alongside salvaged alien computers. "We've cracked their navigation database," she announced. "We know where they come from." The main display showed a three-dimensional map of the local galactic region. Hundreds of star systems were marked with different colored symbols. Red markers are Kethvar military bases. Yellow are industrial worlds. Blue are slave colonies with other species. How many species are we talking about? At least 47 that we can identify. Some have been slaves for thousands of years. And Sarah, they all hate the Kethvar as much as we do. Chen studied the map carefully. "You're suggesting we take the fight to them." "I'm suggesting we do what humans do best, turn their own system against them. The Kethvar control their empire through fear and superior technology. But we've stolen their technology, and as for fear," Petrov smiled coldly, "I don't think they know what fear really looks like yet." Above Earth's atmosphere, Fleet Commander Thainok was learning exactly what Dr. Petrov meant. His fleet of 12 ships was now down to 8 operational vessels. The humans had stopped the random attacks and moved to surgical strikes that targeted specific systems with impossible accuracy. "Sir, we have another problem," his intelligence officer reported. "The humans have stopped broadcasting on their normal communication channels, meaning we can no longer intercept their tactical communications. It's as if they've gone completely silent, but their coordination is actually improving." Thainok studied the tactical displays. The human attacks were becoming more sophisticated by the hour. Their missiles now flew in complex patterns that avoided point defense systems. Their boarding parties somehow knew exactly where to strike his ships for maximum damage. Most disturbing, they seemed to predict his tactical decisions before he made them. "Sir, incoming transmission from the planet." Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge, but there was something different about it now. It carried an undertone that made even Kethvar crystals resonate uneasily. "Commander Thainok, this is Admiral Chen. We need to talk." "There is nothing to discuss. Your species will be eliminated." "See, that's where you're wrong. We've been having some very interesting conversations with your database. Did you know you've got detailed files on 47 different species you've conquered? That's a lot of civilizations you've destroyed." Thainok felt his first real moment of concern. Human access to Kethvar databases should have been impossible. "You cannot access our secured systems." "Actually, we can. Turns out your computer security is really designed to keep other Kethvar out, not humans. We think differently than you do, so we found ways in that you never considered." Chen's voice carried a hint of satisfaction. "We know about the Zephyrin resistance fighters hiding in the asteroid belts of Kepler 442. We know about the Threx slave colonies that still maintain hidden weapon stockpiles. We even know about the Mordak survivors who've been planning rebellion for the past 3 centuries. Impossible. Those species were completely subdued, were they? Because according to your own intelligence reports, you've been dealing with minor incidents and isolated uprisings across your empire for decades. You just classified them as insignificant and ignored them." Admiral Chen's next words sent ice through Thanok's crystalline veins. We're about to make those incidents a lot less minor. On Earth, preparation for humanity's counterattack was reaching its final stages. The underground factories had produced enough modified weapons and equipment to outfit 50,000 human soldiers. More importantly, they had built something the galaxy had never seen before: human starships designed specifically for war. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, humanity's first real warship. It wasn't beautiful like Kethvar vessels. It was ugly, functional, and designed with one purpose in mind: to hurt the enemy as badly as possible before being destroyed. All systems green, Admiral, Rodriguez reported to Chen via their new psychic communication network. Fleet is ready for Phase 3. The human fleet consisted of 50 ships, each one built from captured Kethvar technology, but modified to match human tactical thinking. They were fast, heavily armed, and designed to operate independently if needed. Most importantly, they were crewed by volunteers who understood they might not come home. Remember the mission parameters, Chen told her captains. We're not trying to conquer the Kethvar Empire. We're trying to destroy it, hit their supply lines, free their slaves, and give every oppressed species the tools they need to fight back. Captain Williams of the UES Defiance spoke up through the psychic link. What about civilian populations? The Kethvar don't have civilians, Chen replied coldly. Every single one of them participates in their empire's oppression. But we're better than they are. We'll give them the same choice they gave us: surrender or face the consequences. The first target was a Kethvar supply depot 3 days away at maximum speed. Intelligence suggested it was lightly defended and contained enough weapons and equipment to arm several slave populations. More importantly, it was connected to the Empire's main communication network. All ships, engage jump drives. Let's go teach the Kethvar what happens when they mess with humanity. The human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving Earth's defenders to continue their orbital battle, with Thanok's remaining forces. But the real war was just beginning. 3 days later, Supply Depot Keth 47 received its routine morning report from the orbital platforms. Everything was normal. Cargo transfers proceeding on schedule, security patrols showing no unusual activity, slave labor crews working at acceptable efficiency rates. Then the humans arrived. The attack came without warning. 50 human warships dropped out of hyperspace simultaneously, their modified Kethvar weapons already charged and targeting critical systems. The depot's defenses, designed to repel primitive raiders or slave uprisings, were completely overwhelmed. Commander Zixtal barely had time to send a distress signal before his command center exploded around him. The humans weren't just attacking randomly. They knew exactly where every critical system was located, as if they had Compla. High Dominarch Zephyros stood in his crystal throne room, watching reports flow in from across his empire. For the first time in 10,000 years of Kethvar supremacy, the daily briefings brought nothing but bad news. Summarize, he commanded his intelligence chief. Commander Vextai's crystalline form flickered with nervous energy. My lord, we have lost contact with 17 supply depots, 43 communication relays, and 8 minor military installations. Slave uprisings have broken out on 29 worlds. The humans have somehow armed primitive species with our own technology. How many ships have we lost? 47 confirmed destroyed, 31 missing and presumed captured. The humans appear to be using our own vessels against us. Zephyros felt something he had not experienced in millennia: genuine confusion. The reports made no logical sense. A single primitive species could not possibly coordinate attacks across half the galaxy, yet the evidence was undeniable. What is the status of Fleet Commander Thanok? Still engaged in orbit around the human homeworld, my lord. His forces are reduced to 4 ships, but he reports the planet's surface is almost completely sterilized. Almost. The humans appear to have extensive underground facilities. Complete planetary sterilization may require additional resources. High Dominarch Zephyros processed this information with growing unease. A standard harvester fleet should have been able to eliminate any Delta-class species within days. The fact that Thanok was still fighting after weeks suggested something was fundamentally wrong with their intelligence assessments. Recall all available fleets, he ordered. If this human infestation has spread beyond their homeworld, we must contain it before it infects other systems. What Zephyros didn't understand was that containment was already impossible. Human strike forces were operating throughout Kethvar space, and they weren't just hitting random targets. They were systematically dismantling the infrastructure that held the Empire together. Captain Sarah Williams stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, studying tactical displays that showed the Rigel system ahead. Intelligence indicated it was a major Kethvar, industrial world with over 10 million crystal beings working in weapons, factories and shipyards. Remember the mission parameters? She told her crew through their psychic communication network. We're not here to commit genocide. We're here to cripple their war production and free their slaves. Lieutenant Commander Park nodded from his position at the weapons console. What if they refuse to surrender? Then we make surrender their most attractive option, Williams replied grimly. The Defiance and her escort ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Rigel system, immediately launching a cloud of sensor probes to map the system's defenses. What they found was typical of Kethvar arrogance. Powerful orbital platforms designed to repel frontal assaults, but almost no patrol ships or early warning systems. They're not expecting us, Park observed. Their entire defense network is focused on protecting against large fleets, not small raiding forces. Perfect. Begin Phase 1. Phase 1 was pure human psychology warfare. Instead of attacking immediately, the human ships began broadcasting on every frequency the Kethvar used for communication. The message was simple and delivered in perfect Kethvar language, thanks to captured translation algorithms. Attention Crystal Empire. This is Captain Sarah Williams of the United Earth Defense Force. Your High Command has classified my species as Delta-class vermin, suitable only for extermination. We disagree. You have exactly 1 hour to evacuate all non-essential personnel from your military installations. After that, we will begin demonstrating why underestimating humans was the worst mistake you ever made. The response from Rigel Command was predictable. Primitive species, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender immediately or face complete annihilation. Captain Williams smiled coldly. Counter-offer. You surrender immediately, or we turn your entire industrial complex into scrap metal. You have 59 minutes to decide. The Kethvar response was to launch everything they had at the human ships. Orbital defense platforms opened fire with massive energy beams, while fighter squadrons boiled up from the planet's surface. It was an impressive display of firepower that should have vaporized the small human force. Instead, the human ships simply weren't there when the attacks arrived. Cloaking technology? Wondered System Defense Commander Korthek as his targeting systems found nothing but empty space. Negative, his sensor officer replied. They appear to be using some form of dimensional displacement. Our weapons are hitting the correct coordinates, but the ships have somehow moved to parallel dimensional space. What the Kethvar didn't understand was that humans had taken their captured technology and improved it in ways the original designers never imagined. Human scientists had discovered that Kethvar shield generators could be modified to create brief dimensional shifts, allowing ships to temporarily exist slightly out of phase with normal space. The human ships reappeared directly behind the orbital platforms, their modified Kethvar weapons cutting through shields and armor like tissue paper. But instead of destroying the platforms completely, they targeted specific systems, power generators, communication arrays, weapons controls. Attention Rigel Command, Captain Williams broadcast as the orbital defenses went dark one by one. As promised, we are now demonstrating human military capabilities. Your defenses have been neutralized without killing a single Kethvar. This is us being merciful. Don't make us change our minds. The attack on the planetary surface was equally surgical. Human boarding parties, wearing modified Kethvar environmental suits and carrying captured weapons, appeared throughout the industrial complex. But they weren't there to destroy everything. They were there to liberate the slave workers. Commander Korthek watched in horror as his labor camps emptied. Thousands of Zephyrin, Threx, and Mordak slaves were being armed with Kethvar weapons by human soldiers. Worse, the slaves knew exactly how to use the weapons. Someone had been training them. Sir, we're receiving reports from across the system, his communications officer announced. The humans have landed teams on every major installation. They're not trying to hold territory. They're just freeing slaves and destroying our production capacity. How is this possible? How do they know the layout of our facilities? How do they speak our languages? How do they know which systems to target? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Elena Petrov's voice filled the Kethvar command center. speaking in perfect crystal speech. Hello, Commander Korthek. This is Dr. Elena Petrov of the Human Research Division. I thought you might like to know how we're doing this. How are you speaking our language? Korthek demanded. We learned it from your own people. Did you know that when you kill a Kethvar, their brain crystals retain memories for several hours? We've been studying them very carefully. We know your military codes, your defensive strategies, your industrial processes, even your personal fears. We know everything about you. Korthek's crystal form went dark with horror. Impossible. Crystal memory deteriorates immediately upon death. Not if you know how to preserve it. We've gotten very good at that. In fact, we know so much about Kethvar psychology that we can predict your tactical decisions before you make them. For example, right now you're thinking about sending a distress signal to the High Command. Don't bother. We're jamming all your communications. As if to prove the point, every communication system in the Rigel system suddenly went silent. The humans had somehow identified and disabled every method the Kethvar had for calling for help. What do you want? Korthek asked, his proud crystal voice cracking with defeat. We want you to understand something very important, Dr. Petrov replied. You classify species as alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. You think the universe is a hierarchy with you at the top. But you're wrong. The universe doesn't care about your classifications. It only cares about adaptation and survival. And humans are very, very good at both. Captain Williams took over the communication. Here's what's going to happen, Commander. You're going to order all Kethvar personnel to evacuate this system immediately. Take your families, take your personal belongings, but leave everything else. This system now belongs to the species you enslaved. And if I refuse, then we stop being merciful. So far we've avoided killing Kethvar civilians. But if you force us to, we'll turn this entire system into a monument to human determination. Your choice. The evacuation took 18 hours. Kethvar transport ships fled the Rigel system carrying millions of crystal beings who had never experienced defeat before. They left behind industrial facilities worth centuries of development and thousands of newly armed, former slaves who were eager to use their liberation as a base for further rebellion. But the humans weren't finished. As the last Kethvar transport departed, Captain Williams sent a message that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. Attention, Kethvar High Command. This is the United Earth Defense Force. We know you're listening to this transmission. We want you to understand something. For 10,000 years, you've ruled through fear and superior technology. You've convinced yourselves that you're the apex species, the natural rulers of the galaxy. You've forgotten that empires built on oppression always fall eventually. They fall because oppressed people never stop looking for High Dominarch Zephyros, stared at the galactic map in his war room, watching red warning lights blink across half his empire. 47 worlds in open rebellion. 16 fleets reported missing or destroyed. Supply lines cut. Communication networks compromised. In 6 months, the humans had accomplished what no enemy had managed in 10,000 years. They had brought the Kethvar Empire to its knees. Status report, he commanded, though he already knew it would be bad news. Commander Vextai approached with visible reluctance. My lord, the situation continues to deteriorate. The Threx rebellion has spread to 12 systems. The Zephyrin resistance has captured our main weapons depot in the Centauri sector. And the humans, he paused, struggling with the words. The humans appear to be everywhere at once. How is that possible? Intelligence suggests they have fewer than 100 ships. Yes, my lord, but they are not fighting like a traditional fleet. They operate in small groups, strike without warning, disappear before we can respond. Worse, they seem to know our tactical responses before we make them. Zephyros turned to face his intelligence chief. The High Dominarch's crystal form was no longer the brilliant, commanding presence it had once been. Stress and defeat had dimmed his inner light. You told me these humans were Delta-class primitives. All our initial assessments indicated your assessments were wrong. The psychic shout that erupted from Zephyros shattered crystal fixtures throughout the room. These humans have made us look like fools. They have turned our own empire against us. They have made the word Kethvar synonymous with failure throughout the galaxy. Vextai cowered under his master's rage. My lord, what are your orders? Zephyros was quiet for a long moment, his crystal form pulsing with dark energy. Activate the extinction protocol. The words fell into the war room like stones into still water. Every Kethvar present felt their crystal hearts skip in horror. The extinction protocol was the Empire's ultimate weapon, never used but always ready. It was designed for only one purpose, to sterilize entire star systems when conventional conquest failed. My lord, vexed I whispered, the extinction protocol has never been authorized. The weapon systems are untested on such a scale. Then we will test them on the humans, Zephyros replied coldly. If we cannot rule the galaxy, then we will burn it clean and start over. Activate all stellar devastation units. Target every system with confirmed human presence. And target Earth first. What the High Dominarch didn't know was that human intelligence networks had penetrated deep into Kethvar command structures. Within minutes of his decision, the information was racing through quantum communication channels to Admiral Chen on Earth. They're going to do what? Chen asked, staring at the intelligence report. Dr. Petrov looked up from her analysis. Starkiller weapons. According to the captured data, they have devices that can destabilize solar cores and cause controlled supernova explosions. They're planning to destroy every system where we've established a presence. How long do we have? The closest stellar devastation unit is being moved into position near Sol. Estimated arrival, 72 hours. Chen felt ice in her veins. This was the scenario they had always feared. A desperate enemy willing to commit genocide on a galactic scale rather than accept defeat. Options? We could try to evacuate Earth's population, but there's nowhere to run. If they're targeting all human-occupied systems, the entire galaxy becomes a death trap. Petrov paused, then continued more quietly. Or we implement Operation Final Answer. Admiral Chen had hoped they would never need Operation Final Answer. It was humanity's most classified and morally questionable contingency plan, developed by their best strategic minds and most ruthless psychologists. It was designed for exactly this situation, when an enemy chose mutual destruction over surrender. Brief me, Chen ordered. For the past 3 months, our infiltration teams have been placing sleeper agents throughout Kethvar space. Not human agents, we could never pass for crystal beings. Instead, we've been using converted Kethvar. Converted how? Dr. Petrov activated a holographic display showing human technology integrated with Kethvar biology. We discovered that Kethvar brain crystals can be modified using their own psychic amplification technology. The process essentially reprograms their fundamental thought patterns, making them loyal to human interests instead of Kethvar supremacy. Chen stared at the display with a mixture of admiration and horror. You're talking about mind control. We're talking about survival, Petrov replied firmly. These converted Kethvar have been placed in key positions throughout their empire. Command centers, research facilities, weapons installations. They appear normal to other Kethvar, but they follow human directives. How many? Approximately 12,000, including some very highly placed individuals. Admiral Chen made her decision. Activate Operation Final Answer. Full implementation. The order went out through humanity's quantum communication network, reaching converted Kethvar agents throughout the galaxy. The results were immediate and devastating. On Keth Prime, Commander Yithek received the activation signal as he stood in the Empire's primary weapons control center. To his colleagues, he appeared to be the same loyal Kethvar officer he had always been. But 3 months ago, a human infiltration team had captured him and subjected him to consciousness modification. Now he served humanity's interests with the same fanatical devotion he had once shown to the Crystal Empire. Beginning final safety checks on Stellar Devastation Unit 7, he announced to his subordinates. It was a routine procedure that no one questioned, but instead of conducting safety checks, Yithek began implementing a program that human technicians had installed in his modified brain. With practiced efficiency, he began sabotaging the Starkiller weapon from within, introducing flaws that would cause it to malfunction at the critical moment. Similar scenes played out across the Kethvar Empire. Weapons officers introduced subtle programming errors into targeting systems. Supply commanders rerouted critical materials to human forces. Communication technicians inserted false data into intelligence reports. The Kethvar Empire's own personnel were systematically betraying it from within. High Dominarch Zephyros remained unaware of the sabotage as he watched the deployment of his ultimate weapons on the main tactical display. Status of Stellar Devastation Unit 1, approaching the human homeworld, my lord, reported his operations chief, another converted Kethvar who now served human interests. All systems show optimal function. Excellent. Once Earth is destroyed, the human infestation will collapse. Their entire species appears to be psychologically dependent on their homeworld. What Zephyros didn't understand was that humans had been planning for this scenario since the war began. Earth's population had been quietly relocated to hidden colonies throughout the galaxy. The planet below was mostly automated defenses and volunteer skeleton crews who had chosen to stay behind. Admiral Chen stood in Earth's deepest command bunker, watching the massive Kethvar weapon approach on her screens. All stations prepare for final answer Phase 2. Captain Rodriguez, now commanding Earth's defense fleet, opened communications with the approaching Stellar Devastation Unit. Attention Kethvar weapon platform. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. Before you destroy my planet, I thought you might like to know something interesting. The Kethvar commander responded with cold arrogance. Speak quickly, Primitive. Your world has minutes remaining. Do you remember Commander Yithek, your weapons specialist? The one who certified your Starkiller device as fully operational? Of course. He is one of our most trusted officers. Admiral Chen smiled grimly. 3 months ago, we captured him during a raid on your supply depot. We modified his brain crystal using your own psychic technology. He's been working for us ever since. A moment of horrified silence followed this revelation. That's impossible, the Kethvar commander finally replied. Crystal modification of living beings has never been achieved. You're right. It had never been achieved by Kethvar scientists. But human scientists think differently than you do. We don't just use your technology the way you intended. We improve it, modify it, turn it into something new, something better. Chen's voice took on a tone of grim satisfaction. Commander Yithek has been sabotaging your Starkiller weapons for months. Every single stellar devastation unit in your arsenal has been compromised. And he's not the only one working for us. As if summoned by her words, converted Kethvar agents throughout the Empire began revealing themselves. Thousands of crystal beings who had appeared loyal suddenly turned on their own kind, seizing control of critical facilities and broadcasting their new allegiance to humanity. Attention, Kethvar Empire, came a transmission from Keth Prime itself. The voice belonged to High Commander Zithval, one of the Empire's most trusted military L.